Looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our Tango Round Table. We have brand new panelists for each one. And today's topic is around sustaining community. Specifically, we're going to be talking about local teachers, local communities, local organizers, and what's happening at the local level and how it impacts the global tango community at large. And I want to welcome you guys, and I also want to welcome my panelists. So if you're joining in, I already see a lot of people joining in. Hello, hello. Say hello in the comments. Tell us where you're listening in from, and please write any thoughts or commentary about what we're talking about, because we do check the live feed and we do want to have you guys interact with us as well. So this is a global dialogue among the tango community. So the first thing I want to do is welcome and have all of the lovely panelists talk about who they are and what they're up to. And we'd love to start with Sonia, if you're ready, or I can go, or I can go to another person. So love for Sonia to begin. Oh, you need more time? All right, we'll go. How about I start with Michelle, and just give us a little bio of who you are, where you're from. Love to know.
Thank you, Chrissy, and hello to all the other panelists. My name is Michelle Berrios Cabrera, and I'm an Argentine tango dancer. I have been an organizer and a milonga organizer for the past 19 years. Home of Tango Cafe, which is located in Philadelphia. And my journey started just like a lot of your journeys, enamored with the music. That was the hook. I listened to Di Sarli, Carlos Di Sarli, and I still remember vividly, yes, it was Indio Manso, the piece that I listened to, and it just pulled me in. And I just couldn't stop. I wanted more and more. So within that first year, I packed my things and I went to Argentina. And I just, I went by myself. I didn't know anybody. I just started, researching and looking for things. And I just couldn't get enough. So tango has been wonderful to me. Tango is really a group of enthusiast that slowly you turn into community. So I've been seeing it thrive. I've been seeing the different changes. I made a lot of connections, and I just like everybody else have my waves, my ups and downs with tango, just like any other relationship. And but one constant thing, and that I tell everybody, is el tango siempre está para ti, siempre está ahí para ti. The tango is always there for you. So that is my tango journey. Looking forward to many more years.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah. Let's have Sonia weigh in on.
Hello. First of all, Cristina, thank you for inviting me and all these wonderful women. My name is Sonia. I live in Belgrade my whole life. My tango journey started 15 years ago. I'm an actress by first profession, but first only chronologically, because 15 years ago, a bit more, I met tango and I fell in love crazy in tango. And little by little, I realized that it's a better world for me, that it opens lots of possibilities for me to express also in the way that I wanted to have my life as an actress. And then step by step, I started teaching, organizing, playing music, and tango totally changed my life, and I'm endlessly grateful to
tango. Oh, thank you so much, Sonia. Let's have Melina next.
So, hello, my name is Melina Sedo. Well, I started dancing tango around 25 years ago. There was not much tango going on by that time. But nevertheless, I stuck to it. And around 20 years ago, I started teaching and organizing events with my partner, Detlef Engel. I'm living in southwestern Germany, 1 kilometer away from France, so super near to France. And the first place I was ever teaching was in a town 140 kilometers away from where I lived. So not in my hometown. And very soon we gave weekly or monthly classes in several cities in Germany and in France, but again, not in my hometown. And then we started traveling even more from 2005 and 2006 on. We gave up our, let's say, regular activities, our professions. I was a psychologist before that, but we gave that up to start traveling internationally. We started traveling all over the world, helped building the Encuentro community. But the problem was that we lost all our connections to our home community. We still went on organizing an Encuentro and once in a while another event in our hometown. But usually these events were now visited by people coming from very, very far from all over the world, but not by the people of our hometown Saarbrücken, which was really weird. So I got really super disconnected from that town I was actually still living in because I was traveling all the time. And the thing was, I was quite happy with what we were achieving and doing, but I always had the impression that I could achieve more if I could somehow have a little bit more access to what's actually happening in the communities itself. Because as a traveling teacher, I was always there once, twice, maybe a couple of years, but only once or twice a year. And you cannot do that much, actually. So the first thing I started changing was to build up a tango teacher training, because I knew when I get access to those people who actually teach in the communities, I can have much more of an impact. My work can have much more of an impact. And that was already super nice. And so far around 100 people did our 120-hour teacher training. So we're super happy with that. But then suddenly in 2018, 4 people from my hometown joined our teacher training. And we were super surprised about this because we didn't have so much contact. But we saw this as a chance because we could never teach in our hometown because we're traveling all the time. Now we had these teacher trainees in our hometown doing our teacher training. And then we decided, okay, now we're going to finally, after 19 years of traveling all around the world, teach in our hometown too, with the help, collaborating with our teacher trainees, integrating them in classes, and everything was going super last year. We're building up a new community because there was not so super much tango going on here. We're not so happy with what was happening here, but we're super glad. Classes were full and everything. And then, of course, Corona happened. And not only all our international engagements, but also our tango activities here in our hometown stopped. We've taken up some of that again, also our teacher training. The next group has started, but still a lot is postponed and cancelled, as you all know. So we're eager to restart actually our local work. So thank you for.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for giving that background. It's really helpful. Carol, let's have you introduce yourself.
My name is Carol. I live in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and I think most people in North America know that Montreal is a tango city that has quite a history. To talk a bit more to that, we started our studio 20-some years ago, but there were already 3 dedicated spaces for tango in our city at that time. 2 of those 3 still exist, and there's 2 more. And when I say dedicated, I mean we have tango activities every day of the week, 3 milongas a week, 2 practices, classes every day with 10 or 12 teachers. Some of them, most of them actually, deriving their main source of income from teaching tango. So Montreal, we're very lucky here. We have a very vibrant community, a community that is reflective of all different ages, different styles. Aside from the school, I've tried to be involved in some events through the school and through other things. We have normal situation. We have an event called the Fling every year, which was supposed to be in its base just a way to show out-of-town people what our milongas are like in a regular time, not during a festival, because we were finding, this is back 12 some years ago, we were finding that when people came in from out of town, they had a sort of skewed perspective of what our community was like, because they'd go to either, you know, a marathon, which was very exclusive, or some fancy event. So we did this event. I mean, the beginning of it was, all we did was we advertised this event, which we thought was funny because it was nothing, and it was just a list of all the different milongas in the city, and it's built up a following, and every year we do it. So there's that. We have a festival and a few other things as well. Of course, now absolutely almost nothing.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. And you're right. I love the Montreal scene. It's really special. And last but not least, we have Puja.
Hello, everyone. I'm Puja. I started dancing actually in the New Jersey, New York area about 10 or 11 years ago. And I'm probably the newest to organizing of this group, and super honored to be sharing this space with everybody here, because I learned a lot in our pre-call, and I am excited to learn a lot more today as well as contribute. I started a small business in Austin, Texas called Guardia Vieja to try to re-energize the tango scene here. So I've only really been organizing for about 2 or 3 years. And of course, currently not doing very much given COVID, but have a lot of new ideas and things coming up soon that hopefully will continue to keep the energy high. And Christina, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Puja. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. So I wanted to sort of kick off the first idea around sustaining community, because I think it can be taken in a lot of different ways. Some of you have expressed how lucky you are that your communities really understand the idea of this reciprocity, that tango is not just a transactional idea or transactional product, that there is this idea that you're offering you're serving the community, and the community is serving you, and you're also a part of the community. So when we talk about sustaining community, it's not just students or people that want to go and dance. It's also talking about the local organizers and the local teachers, and the kind of energy that you need of this reciprocal nature in order for it to thrive. And so I'd love to talk about that and some of your unique experiences around what local community is like. And we all have different experiences, and I've talked to a lot of people that maybe have differing experiences than you guys around. Okay, they're feeling like their community is not serving them in the way that they would like. But I'd love to hear Sonia's perspective around what's, her experiences in Belgrade. She's built a huge network in Belgrade, and what is community like for you? Like, tell me about your experiences around serving community and having the community serving you as well.
Well, the first thing that I think is very important in this topic is understanding what a community is. Because many times it's considered that when you have a bunch of people at the same place dancing tango, like tango people in one city, they represent the community of the city. But it's not necessarily like that. I'm lucky that for the past 11 years that I have the school, that it's grown a lot, really. And we have 20 people in the team, and hundreds of students, and lots of projects and classes and everything. And from the beginning, we understood that community is something else than just a group of people that dance tango. The interesting thing is that when you have a person who enters the tango world, when you have a beginner, this person comes for various reasons, but these reasons are very rarely community, because people don't have the idea of what they can actually get. People come like to learn the dance, to socialize, to meet people, to have recreations, because their therapists told them that it's good to dance tango, for contact, and many other things, but they don't come for community, right? So they come They pay a certain amount of money, membership, for the classes that they are getting, and they are expecting a product, to get a product back from you, the product that will fulfill their needs. But then as the time is passing, we almost all of us, but the biggest majority of people end up at the same place. And this place is that we want to have the community. But if there is no understanding of this from the people who are leading this community, teachers, organizers, and so on, no education for the people who are coming, then it's quite possible that after many years, a certain community ends up being a seed, because this is something that needs to be developed through the years from the first moment when someone comes to your classes. To understand that we as teachers or organizers, of course, that we are there to provide classes, to provide good places, to provide good music, to provide all these things. But at the same time, it's also people who need to take responsibility for the surrounding, for relations, for support that they will give to the others, because at one point they will need support themselves. And this is a constant change. And from my point of view, as I said at the beginning, the most important thing is for people who lead communities or scenes to understand that this is a process, that a person who comes just for the classes and never heard anything about it, never heard any idea, never seen any acts from other people's, after 3, 5, 10 years, this person ends up without this idea, and this is completely normal. So it's something that needs to be nourished. Like when you have a baby, you need to bring up that baby to a person. I feel this as a similar thing. We need to support, and we need to be supported, but we also need to act ourselves. And when I say we, I don't think only now on me that I'm in the position of teacher or organizer, but also all the people who are taking part in this community.
Beautifully said. I agree wholeheartedly. And just to kind of go on your sort of raising a child, there's a certain moment where you need to let them have their have a sense of their own belonging in their own space in the world. And at some point, contribution back to the world or responsibility starts to play a role in everyone's life, where we're not just the ones getting served, that we need to serve in some way too. I think Puja had her hand up, so do you want to comment on that further, or do you have insights around that?
Well, I also wanted to add that I think community is also not just like one set of organizer or teachers to their students. In especially larger cities, community also requires organizers within that city, because there will be more than one at some point in time if this grows large enough, to also understand that they have a responsibility towards one another, to nourish each other, so that we're nourishing the scene together, right? So building on that child analogy, it takes a village. So like, it does require us to all get along with one another to certain degrees, and at least have respect for one another when we are trying to build a tango scene, maybe at the city level, even if we might have differences, I think, at the individual level of how we might want to run something. Because I really think that tango is like going to be different for different people, and what they might want out of it, to Sonia's point, might be different at different times or stages in their learning, but also in the time that they experience it. And so maybe different people can fulfill different needs, and it might not all just be one thing, because I don't think tango is like one thing for everyone.
You're right, and I'll have Melina go next. I agree that there's some blessings that happen when a community grows, and when there's choice, but then there's also some interesting blowback when that does start to happen. There's other challenges that take place. Melina, go ahead. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, I'm unmuted again. I earlier said that we were in our beginning years teaching locally, but then traveling, and then last year restarting local activities. And in our very early years, we already built up a tango community, or tried to build up a tango community in a very small town, not again our hometown, but a little bit farther away. And back then, Our mistake was that we did everything. We saw ourselves as professionals who were providing a service, and we organized everything. We did the classes, we provided super milongas for them, and they were people in this small town were super lucky because there was no tango before we came. And they had from the beginning super milongas with people coming from a bigger region, so they could experience super milongas, real tango from the beginning. But the problem was because we were organizing everything and we were taking over all the responsibility, they never felt as if they were hosts as well. So they were just there consuming. For example, not dancing with other people, just interested in their little group, not interested to going to other places as well. They were basically disconnected from the other people who came to the milongas in this town. And we felt always very frustrated because we tried to ask them to feel as hosts as well during the milonga. And we didn't succeed. Then later we stopped working there because we started traveling. And now, so when we restarted working, the very first thing I did was, before I even announced first classes or any activities, I got together a couple of people from my hometown who I knew who were not super happy with the tango situation here, who wanted to do something. And I got them together and said, listen, I would like to start doing something in my hometown after all these years, but I don't want to do it alone. Would you want to contribute? What can you do? And those people were interested from the beginning. They were super enthusiastic from the beginning. And now I see that this is really paying off because these people, they still engage in tango even now during these Corona months when we couldn't do anything. They were still always asking, hey, what can we do? When can we restart and everything? And now everyone is contributing, still everything very small, but I'm really, really happy that I chose this other path from the beginning here now in my hometown, and not just, again, trying to do everything on my own, but getting help from those people, the ones who have done our teacher training, but also other people who I just connected to. And I feel that this was really, let's say, the good thing to do, not doing it on your own all, because no one can do everything on his own.
Right. And you bring up a great point, Melina, where, and we talked about this yesterday, where a lot of our communities started with people that were not teachers or were not organizers or were not doing it from a business sense at all. It was like all passion, all just desire. And those were sort of the pop-up moments in tango that were happening, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I remember when I first started that a really wonderful place was somebody that had a loft space that, he wasn't a professional tango dancer. So it was one of the most popular places in Philadelphia. And so there is this interesting mix of when the local people that are not teachers take a certain responsibility to cultivate this enjoyment for themselves. And it also alleviates the burden of, professional teachers and organizers to only provide these services. And I think it expands the community as well, because people do want to contribute. I think that when you allow them, they want to be a really active participant. Go ahead, Michelle. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Work in Philadelphia, knowing, those people that from the very beginning, Kelly Ray, Leslie Mitchell, which was crucial. I'll never forget something that she said. She said it in an interview years ago. She's passed, but she said that they understood from the very beginning that if they wanted to move this thing, and she called it this thing, forward, they needed to build a community with it. And tango, then I think that is a better path sometimes when it grows organically, from a group of enthusiasts that start getting together, trying to figure it out. What is this? I saw this, and 8 tracks or whatever. There were no, there wasn't any YouTube or anything like that. So people getting together in small spaces in their homes, but they built community. They started, gatherings, with potluck dinners, the loft space that you're talking about. I remember it very well. So those things really help, like you said, alleviate the burden. I think when you work at it backwards and bring the big circus in town and you bring this big, it sometimes just, it doesn't work that way, because there has to be an element of trust. There has to be an element of connection. It is a popular dance, and it relies heavily, heavily on relationships. It's not so much transactional, but relational, and I think that's what has proven successful here. The city of
Well
God that we
said.
love.
Yeah, exactly,
Right?
Michelle. There's a really great question. Mila had a couple of great questions. I'd like, maybe we save them for in a little bit, because they're very more intricate, and I think they're really important. But Alex has a general question, and maybe Carol can speak to this. So he says, what would be the pillars of an ideal healthy tango local? I'll just start with a local community, because international community is another kind of set of ideals, I think. So Carol, interesting to know what you think are the pillars of healthy tango community.
I can only really speak to my own experience. And like I mentioned in the introduction, I entered into a tango scene that was already quite well established. And sometimes when things are established in a certain way, a pattern is there, and that's what ends up working for that particular city. But I remember when I started, I was learning at one particular place, and I ended up, working. I started there by working in their coat check, and doing, sort of odd jobs, and I ended up teaching and performing. They had a sort of a fusion of contemporary dance and tango, but I remember way back then that the tango schools here, they're called schools, whether some of them got along or were very friendly with each other, and some of them not so much, but there was a respect. And I think this respect of community comes from, well, in our case, it's from the studio. So for example, if someone was bringing in a guest teacher, I spoke a bit of this yesterday. If someone was bringing in a guest teacher, they contacted all the other places and say, hey, we're looking at these dates for this person. Is that okay for you? And at that time, there was this understanding that no one would bring in a guest teacher closer than 6 weeks to the time of another. Because you have to understand, in this city, we had people teaching, local teachers, already 20 odd years ago, teaching every night of the week. There was already a very healthy scene with people who were qualified, quite good. So the balance of keeping the local scene and keeping those people financially stable would be affected by people coming in from the outside. And if one school was having something special, then the other ones made a point of not necessarily canceling their regular events, but certainly not planning another special event too close to that one, so that the people's the money that people, our clients, if you want to call them, had to spend wasn't too thinly dispersed out. So I think this idea of I don't want to say leaders, but these more visible people in the community showing respect to the others, that gets passed down amongst the people who are our patrons or our clients. However, I've found out a long time ago that some people, I think it's in their effort of wanting to feel that they belong somewhere, will start bad-mouthing or criticizing a place that they view to be the opposite, when it's really funny when the directors and the teachers from those two places are hanging out together, going out for beer and talking to each other on the phone and over Skype. But I think sometimes the members of our community, the clients, if you like, more, some people make the mistake of thinking to belong to something, you have to not like the other. And I think that is a very big mistake.
Oh yeah. You're bringing up a really great point that we touched on yesterday, which is like the paradox of growth inside a local community. So it's great when the tipping point happens, when you feel like things are thriving, and then all of a sudden maybe what starts happening is that somebody else wants to do events, or another teacher wants to hold classes, or more out of town teachers want to come. And then, as from maybe 15 years ago, that the local communities might have actually been stronger because there was less, let's say, competition, or less people teaching in one specific area, so more concentrated effort. But as tango gets more popular, the demand gets more popular and more teachers arrive, and then there's more kind of business inside of tango. And that's an interesting conundrum where we have to figure out ways of not cannibalizing each other, which is a lot of times what happens. But Carol, it sounds like, within Montreal, there's sort of a healthy dynamic. Oh, you're like, no, not really.
Not always, though. The thing is, it's for sure, there's always, you have to inject new blood into a community and new energy. So there's always going to be people who want to start something in the vision of how they see to do it. And of course, that's a wonderful thing. But then they might not be so aware of, okay, don't do something on a Tuesday because it affects Wednesday, and this kind of thing. So there's always a little bit of a readjustment and a little bit of rumbling every time something new starts. I think it's normal, but it is important that there are new ideas, and that things don't always remain identically the same. The way Sonia was speaking, there's an evolution in things, there's an evolution in your community, and we have to be open to listening and trying to decipher what the new needs might be, for sure.
Right. Melina, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I actually think that competition is, in a way, a very good thing. For me, when I started dancing tango and teaching tango, I perceived it as being very difficult, because the moment that we started teaching in a city 140 kilometers away, the local teacher already started telling her students that we want to steal them away from her. So this was super traumatizing for us, actually, because we thought we would be friendly with her and everything. And this was one reason that we actually turned away from the local tango community and sought connections in other places. So we actually went away. And the thing is that over these years here in our local hometown, not a lot happened. And I can see that whenever someone tried to do something, they were treated in a very bad way. And the result was basically that it stayed small and could not grow. In my opinion, tango will grow with every person who contributes something, whether it's a teacher, an organizer, a DJ, because everyone will attract new people to tango. If it is only one person trying to do something and trying to hold on to everything, then this will stay basically connected to this one person. And we have talked yesterday about the fact that not everyone will like you, not everyone will connect to this one person only. So tango will stay small. But the more people there are there speaking to different audiences, speaking to different people, different cultures or whatever, the more the tango community will grow. And there's just one thing I would like to add. When we started doing our teacher training, a lot of people actually ask us, why are you doing that? Aren't you building your own competition? And I found that so super ridiculous, because again, I think the more people who are out there and actually contributing to something that beautiful, the better it will become. And the more I can influence it, even better for myself. But everyone will contribute something. So competition should not always be seen so negative in the tango world. Because it's hurtful, it's destroying stuff, basically.
Yes, I see your point, and beautiful points. Thank you. Sonia, I wanted to ask you about sort of trends in tango. I think we kind of touched on this. I believe you mentioned this yesterday, that people like the way that we started in tango with this, maybe we all started watching. YouTube was like still new, and we would like watch people, and the way that we consumed tango is often very different than how our students want to take in tango and consume tango, and who they want to dance with, or who they want to, excuse me, take classes with, or who they admire. And I wanted to know if you could speak to some of that, the shifting trends of what's popular or what works inside in a community.
One thing that I saw is that the time of big stars is a bit. You hear me? Yes. So what I wanted to say is that it seems to me that the time of big stars is kind of behind us, right? Also because the level of dancers and teachers, but also just the social dancers in world is much higher now. And also there are, if we talk about the stars professionals, let's say, there are much more of them than there was 10 years ago. They travel more, there are more events, so we can reach these people easier. And together with that, it also goes that something that you can reach easier doesn't shine that much to you. So they are not untouchable anymore, let's say. And I see that it's important to understand as a teacher and organizer that things are changing and that people need something else. As you said, I don't know who mentioned yesterday that people need, some of you said that you see people need being in a closer contact with the teacher,
Yeah,
more having a personal relation. And yes, I feel the same, and therefore maintaining the contact with your students, not only on classes, but like organizing kind of round tables in your communities, gatherings of women and gatherings of men, and moments when they all meet together where we can discuss some things. I don't know, organizing this kind of thing I find very important, because this is also something that keeps the feeling of the community. Also, Facebook serves us a lot, and many times we had discussions on Facebook that were not always pleasant, but I saw them all leading in a good direction because they opened some topics. We could hear some people speaking up, opening up what they need, what they like, what they dislike, and it's a kind of way to build up this thing together. Yes. And I mean, in general, the level of everything raised, the level of events raised, everything is much better. Whatever we get, me as a consumer in tango, let's say, when I travel somewhere, what I get now is much better than I was getting 10 years ago at all kinds of events. And also there is a pressure on the teachers that they need to give more, and they are educating themselves more, and so on and so on. So altogether, I see this tango world getting better in many aspects. We are opening up, we are understanding that we have some needs that we need to talk about, we are discussing more, we are investing more in ourselves. And in general, I like it.
Agreed. Yeah, I yesterday when we were speaking, I've noticed that the strength of the local community. What I've noticed in my community, I'll just speak for my own, is that people want to feel remembered. People want to feel like I see this, if they're a traveling teacher, that I see them a few times a year, and they'll remember my name and they'll track my progress. And I want to build that personal relationship with people. I know from myself, maybe 10 or 15, I think I started 15 years ago, that wasn't my main concern. It was like studying with these people that came into town that I just thought were, and Argentines that were amazing. That was more of my, it felt that there weren't as many choices. So it really felt like I needed to like suck all of their information out. But now, the local tango teacher is pretty well educated. They've probably been to Argentina multiple times. It's not such a big deal to go to Argentina anymore. Like there's a lot of skill that's already invested at the local level. And so a lot of times I felt that the tango students that I've had would go off of recommendations that I would make for them and say, like, you should study with these people, they're good. But they take my recommendation as opposed to the rock star status or any kind of status that the person has. Does anybody want to sort of speak more to that? I don't know if there are any hands raised. Go ahead, Melina.
Yeah, when we're talking about trends, we're also speaking about something that Mila just asked about in the in the chat there. And I would like to mention that because not everything is puppies and roses here, there have also been negative developments in the last years, and we all know that a lot of tango communities suffer from the fact that the good dancers are not available anymore, and that not enough, let's say, new people will start tango to balance that. And I've seen that in a lot of places, not only in Germany, but actually a lot of places all over the world. And I just want to mention very briefly a tango community that was in the south of France, in Nîmes and Montpellier. 15 years back, when we started doing tango holidays there, this was the place to go. People would go there to the local milongas, would come there from the Côte d'Azur, would come from Montpellier, they would come from Lyon. People would travel really far to a local Sunday milonga because it was super and everyone would meet there. And we were super happy to bring our students to these milongas who would come for our tango holidays. Then over the years, all the good dancers started going to encuentros or organizing them. So they stopped going to these local milongas, and the level of dancing really fell to a point that nowadays when you go to these milongas, you see stuff on the dance floor that you have seen maybe in the 80s and 90s, like men sweeping the floor with women and sentadas and stuff like that. So nowadays, when we were going there with our students doing the tango holidays, we were sought after because we were then the super dancers who had come from far to dance there. So this was really super frustrating for us to see how milongas who had been thriving, that had been super, super nice to go to, became to places where it was actually almost challenging to dance because it was getting, let's say, dangerous to dance. And I've seen that in some places. And as I said also yesterday, I feel also responsible for that because I encourage this movement of going to encuentros and stuff. And now I feel that we've destroyed somehow something that was actually working locally. So sometimes I have a real bad conscience.
Mm. Oh, it's interesting to talk about. It kind of goes in the same way. There's these tipping points where there's a tango starts thriving, and then there feels like there's a pocket where people want to move in a different direction, and then all of a sudden, maybe inadvertently, it takes some of the tango community away. But from my perspective, I'm trying not to put things as like, oh, it's good or bad. I think it's just the nature of evolution in tango. People want to try different things. People want to belong to certain groups or not, or certain styles appeal to other people more than not. So, Puja, you had your hand up, and then we can speak to Sonia.
Yeah, I also don't know if the scene in Europe might just be very different from the United States. And also, I think within the United States, like different regions are very different as well. So I can't really generalize for the US either. But one of the things that I've noticed in terms of a trend is also that like a lot of the teachers or the higher level dancers that I was like really looking forward to dancing with once I got better, because I only started, about 10 or 11 years ago, have now dropped out, mainly because they haven't been able to have a tango lifestyle that was truly economically stable. And I think like that's one of the topics that Christina, we talked about a little bit yesterday as well, and hopefully we'll get to a little bit more. But this whole nurturing of community and of each other, sometimes if we aren't taking care of those individuals who are also getting better and wanting to make that shift or transition into doing this maybe more professionally or being able to do it in the longer term, or if we aren't recognizing their trends, as in like people are going to get older, they maybe don't want to have the same crazy late nights and might want more like afternoon things going on, then we are going to lose that higher level talent. And then it becomes harder because you have a lot of beginners who are just starting out who are not going to have that. So I think it's also important to look at that evolution as like being an expansion of the number of different audiences that we as organizers have to actually be catering to, and how do we actually look at all of them and manage to keep them together because they'll have different needs at different times. And so I think it's an interesting time because those trends are really starting to cycle and shift. And then of course we have COVID as well, which gives us some time to take a step back and maybe think about these things so that we can find a way to keep them all together. Because I really do feel like there is a piece of tango that I think is like going away that I was really looking forward to, and I'm like trying to hold on to that, but also not trying to stifle like bringing in new people, because I also think that there is a whole untapped sort of group of people that I would like to bring into tango somehow.
Great points. And I think yesterday we've all agreed that there are so many sliders in tango of like what's like, what would work, what doesn't work, depending on geographic location, bringing more people in, having more sense of strength in the local community. There's so many different sliders to kind of hit, and they are so dependent upon community to community. What works in one community may not work in another. Sonia, did you want to speak more to this topic?
Yes, I wanted to add only one thing. So the change is happening. We cannot stop it. We can only adapt. This is what I guess we all agree on. And another thing is that the change happens as I see it, depending on the time that one spends in tango, and also depending on the age. Because if I start with 20, after 10 years, it's not only that I've spent 10 years in tango, but it's only that I'm 10 years older in my life. So there are two criteria that are dictating the change in my needs. So maybe one of the answers is to involve, of course, constantly new people, but also different age. Because then, as their needs are changing, they are somehow, coming up to each other all the time. They are meeting the needs of other people, and you always have larger groups who can communicate together, who can enjoy in the same way, and then the community is a bit on a safe mode. I mean, we are never there's no such a thing as a safe mode, but this is what I saw that works. And I saw it from our example because we are involving people from the high school to their 70s. We really have projects with high schools, with university students, with people of 30s, 40s, and we separate high school students, we separate college students, and then we have the groups of adults where people are mixing up. And then you have a big variety of different people with lots of different needs. And as I said, as time is passing by, they are changing. There's always, like this, a bigger groups of people who fit in together. Now I'm going to go to switch on my light, just to know that I don't go forever.
Thank you, Sonia. So to reiterate something that Sonia said, I think last week we had, the last Tango Round Table, we had Magda from Zagreb, and she was talking about that need. Actually, there's certain groups of people that may have a particular need inside of tango, especially young, very young. She was 17 when she started, I think, and a few years later, she wanted to have a space, a practica or a milonga just devoted to young tango babies. And there was a bit of a backlash around the separation. But it's an interesting idea to have a safe space or have a different space for people inside of tango that represent a more youthful approach, or they feel overwhelmed by all these adults in the room. This is probably their first time they're ever engaging. Go ahead, Sonia, you want to speak to that?
Yes, just shortly, we also do milongas only for beginners. So this is also something that helps people to stay. I remember when I came to tango, all the people that I was looking like at, wow, they dance so well. Actually, they were all more or less beginners. And I felt like, oh, when I'm going to dance like this. But now I imagine a beginner coming to a regular milonga where this person sees some really good dancers. They are simply frustrated and they say, oh my God, I'm never going to do that. I'm clumsy and so on. So also to organize, to kind of separate some groups for the classes, and then to do milongas for beginners. And then, you bring people like this, and sooner or later, they all sit in the same plate and they enjoy much better.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Carol, did you want to weigh in on anything? Been quiet for a moment.
Because you're going back to a question that Mila asked, or a statement that she made, and maybe for the, I'd just like to clarify for the North American people who are here might not be aware of. I think it is a phenomenon that was seen much more in Europe than for us. That I've heard many people talk to this fact that there were so many encuentros and marathons and events going on that local places were finding that a certain group of strong dancers were never there for their local events because every weekend there was something else to go to. I think perhaps the distances in North America don't lend to having a problem of that degree. And then I can only speak to my community, which would be comparable to San Francisco or New York, that the community is so big that even if there is this little group of people that goes somewhere, it's not representative of everyone else who's there anyway. So it's a problem that or a phenomenon that we're looking at, but it hasn't affected us to the same degree as they had in Europe.
That's a good point. I wanted to, I'm sorry, did somebody have their hand up? Go ahead, Melina.
I just wanted to reply to something that Sonia said, having these separate groups also for younger people who want to mingle and to make it easier for them to connect to tango reminds me of a lot of discussions I had in France, where we've been teaching a lot and working a lot with the local communities. There are usually tango clubs. In France, we have usually tango clubs organizing it, not teachers, but really tango clubs. So they've got a lot of members. They want to integrate a lot of people. And in France, tango is even a little bit older than in other places, definitely older than in the eastern part of Europe. So we get a community that is much older. And a lot of people were always wondering, wow, how can we attract younger people to tango? And they thought of all kinds of ideas. In particular, they were always thinking of, we have to play more modern music, non-tango music, or electro-tango and stuff. But they never succeeded in attracting young people because, in our opinion, we always told them you can only attract young people if there are already young people. There will always be the odd young person of 17 and 18 coming to a group of, let's say, grown-ups or even elder people. But if you want to have young, new people, new dancers in your community, you already need some people to attract them, actually. And this was the problem in a lot of communities all over Europe who had already achieved a certain age. And this was totally different in the eastern part of Europe, where tango started later. So more younger people started actually the tango communities and the tango scenes, so they could attract a younger crowd. Just one last thing I want to say. I remember once we were teaching in France, and there the average age was around, let's say, 65 or 70. And Detlef and I were the youngest by a large span. And then the next weekend, directly from there, we went to Romania, teaching in a small festival. And there, the local community was around, I don't know, maybe 35, and we were the oldest there. So it's really super different how tango communities are built. But if you want to integrate people of different age groups, of different, let's say, different cultures or whatever, you need to people with whom they can actually already bond and identify.
Right, you need a sort of representative that was going to lead the charge. Yeah, I want to pivot and talk a little bit about business and tango. I think my connection is a little bit bad. I'm sorry if it is. So, a lot of people start as a tango teacher, they're like, okay, they want to teach tango, and but maybe they don't really have a business mindset, or they don't really know how to make their business solvent. And I guess two things what we chatted about yesterday are coming up for me. One is around the idea of being successful in tango, like building a solvent like business. And I think sometimes you see a little bit of resentment or pushback or questioning of what that means. And I want to know if I know, Sonia, you've experienced this as well, where people kind of obsess around numbers and around potential that people are making, especially if you hold a really large festival, and what that's like. What's been your experience around that?
You asked me? Yes? Well, it's not the best experience to have this experience. It's not the best. It's not the best feeling, and it's you know that you asked the question that was really good. Like, why, if someone is an artist, why should it mean that this artist should not earn money? Why these things are connected in a bad way? Or why is it taken in a bad way when someone earns money? Isn't it a good? Does it speak about the person being capable of maintaining business and so on? But I don't know. I think that Carol spoke about this yesterday, and I liked it.
Yeah.
That since many people started this as a hobby, kind of, then it was not expected from them to earn money because they were not professionals, and this was a kind of pattern that maybe stayed. And through the years, it stayed as I don't know, as idea behind the heads of the people, and then it stayed like this. I mean, tango is my life in many aspects. I love it a lot. I do a lot for tango world. I do a lot for tango community, and tango does a lot for me. Tango changed my life completely. Tango gives me my life in a way that I live out of tango, and I see it really good. I think that I have to admit that sometimes I feel when people approach me this way, I feel guilty if I earn something, and it's something that I have to work on with my therapist, definitely, because it's just not a good program in my head. But I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person because I really don't have the answer to this. It's a big question for me.
Yeah. I mean, you said something really interesting yesterday with that these types of people, they can only add and multiply, but not subtract and divide. And it's so true, because people see numbers and they're like, wow, 1,000 people times this equals that, but they don't see the extreme risk that you're taking, right? When you decide to use rent a brand new space that can house all that, orchestras, all of the inherent risk that you take, and that you shouldn't be rewarded, right?
Yes, to make it really clear, to organize any bigger event with artists, it's always a risk that you will lose something. You can put things in a good way, but there's always a risk to lose something. And this is not a job in which we are safe. So yes, to rent a space, to have a music equipment, a light equipment, to set floor, to do decorations, the candles, like everything costs. I don't know. Michelle, I think that you wanted to say. I'm not the best person for this.
I understand totally, but I think what you called resentment, although I see it resentment, it might sound like a harsh word in here, but I think there's a lingering of historically, and I think we talked a little bit yesterday, this is a popular dance that people find it, they really, and this is a culture more, it's very interconnected to a culture. So when you borrow from a culture, when you tap into a group of people, like you start with aficionados, like and the roots of tango, it just has to be accessible, has to be affordable, inclusive, that many people found it a respite just in that community, just like you find a group of people and you start in a garage, getting together, listening to music, starting to dance. And slowly that is community. So you cannot stop evolution. You cannot stop the way things progress. And in many countries, and capitalism and economic trends and many, many things, there's so many different variants. But when you finally have that person that says, aha, I can do this bigger and do it better and put a business plan together, it's like flipping a switch. And then the other person says, well, wait a minute, I thought we were a community, I thought this was our thing. So that's, it's a delicate, it's like a minefield that you need to navigate very delicately, but it's challenging. It is challenging.
And in general, tango, most people are not making money at all. They're not charging what the reality of what it would cost to
exactly
event.
We lost Christina.
She's
I
frozen
held
for
a
a minute.
clue. Oh, I think I
Okay, she's there.
Chrissy, we lost
Sorry.
you for a minute there.
Sorry about that. I don't know if okay, I was saying that tango is not such a moneymaker because we often don't know how much we actually should be charging, given the fact that space is a premium, food, and then people's participation. If there's an inconsistent participation, all of those things are factors in how much we should charge. If every milonga has 500 people, well, maybe the cost could go down. If space was really affordable, well, maybe the cost could go down. So those are all some factors. Sorry, go ahead, Melina. I have my off.
Yeah, there is something I would like to add to that. When I started teaching tango, as I said, we were asked to do that relatively early, and we were still having our normal jobs. So we did not ask money directly from the participants, but for many years we basically always worked for organizers. And our price per hour was super, super low because we did it just for fun. And when we then started doing it professionally, when we decided to give up our regular professions and started living from that, it took us, and I do not exaggerate, it took us, I think, 10 years until we had reached a level of price per hour which we could be happy with. We could still make a decent income by just working all the time and working a lot, but we were basically eating ourselves up because we had to work so much to actually make a living. And this is because our initial price was so super low that we could not from one year to the other, just because we decided now to live from that, bring it to a level that was actually decent enough to be comfortable with it. And so nowadays, when I'm talking to our teacher trainees or people who start building up tango activities and maybe even planning on living from that, I always ask them to make real good calculations and to really, really honestly think what their work is worth and what their costs are, and not be too shy of asking a normal price that another profession would also ask for, and not to always undervaluate themselves, right? Because this is what people do. They undersell themselves constantly in tango. And as I said, it took us 10 years, and I don't want anyone else to make that experience as well.
Yeah, great point. Carol, yesterday, I want to talk to you. Yesterday, you said something great, especially when we were talking about live music. So one of the things that local teacher or local organizers and teachers do is they try to support the other supporting elements of tango and live music, and sometimes people kind of balk at the price increase around having a special event like live music. And you had you were really strong in your approach around that, and I'd love for you to sort of speak to some of those aspects.
I think you're referring to when I made the comment that sometimes I feel our role is to inform people or educate people or to sensitize people that the live arts, that the live performing arts have a value, and no one should balk at a price. I see sometimes people undercutting things and charging such a little amount, but when you think of a milonga with live music, I always compare it to the cost of when you go to the cinema. If to go into the cinema is $14, then a milonga with live music's got to be $20, $25. You can't, and that's the answer I give. And for people who genuinely cannot afford, I would rather let them come in for free. Not to have a price that is too low. The price is this, and so can volunteer, or I just give you, or have to students, whatever, can come in for free, but the price should remain the same. And I did want to actually address the thing about income and stuff. Nobody goes into the arts or goes into a service industry that serves the arts with the idea that they're going to make money. If they think they are, then they really should just do something else. So of all the people I know in my city who work in tango, we're living below the income level. We're like eligible for government help. We earn enough to get by. We're doing it because we love it. But at the same point, when I see let's say a new person comes in who has a full-time job, or a group of people who have full-time jobs, and they said they're going to do a special milonga, or an event. There was a group of people who were organizing an event, and they didn't want to charge. They thought such and such a price was too much. What did I think? And I said, well, why don't you compare to what people pay in the States or in other cities for the same event? Oh, but that just seems so expensive and whatever. I was like, well, what about for 2 years from now if you're not going to do it yourself and you have to hire somebody to do it? Like, it's really upsetting when you see someone who comes in and goes, well, I don't need the money, so I'm only going to charge X, and then you're undercutting the rest of us. You have to respect the fact that people are trying to make, even if it's a really terribly low income, they're trying to make something out of it, and to give away things for prices that are under it. It's very, very, very frustrating.
Right. Puja, I would love to hear your point of view, because you're trying to sort of make the price point match the effort, and you're trying to create a different kind of mindset around the actual costs. I want to hear your position.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually really agree a lot with what Carol said, and it is very important to set the price correctly, and I think Lena also said the same thing, to start off with, because once you set the wrong expectation that it should be less, it's going to be very hard for people to change. And like, I would love to do tango full time, but I'm actually one of those people who has to have another job in order to survive, because tango full time right now, with the way that things are priced, I would not be able to survive and have the lifestyle that I have and things like that. I would like to eventually transition, which is why with the events that I do create, I have the price set where I do, because I think that's actually fair for all of the expenses that I have, that Sonia was also talking about. Like, people are really only looking at the price of how much it's costing them, but not the value of everything else that's being provided. Like the event I did last year, I literally had an interior decorator that I was working with to create the space, to create the ambiance, and people could feel the difference. But if I just told somebody that, they would never understand why I was doing it. And the reason is because I am trying to change the experience so that I can actually increase the price, so that at some point, maybe I can transition and do this and only do this. But currently it's not possible, which also makes me think of something else that we were talking about that I think is important too. I think because it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem, right? So there are some people who have other jobs and maybe they can afford a loss as a result of that, but they shouldn't because they're undercutting everybody else. But I also think as participants, people need to understand that when your organizer is somebody who also has another job, this is like, in addition to their full-time, they're doing another full-time job. So you need to have some empathy and respect for them as well. Like those days when I'm organizing an event, I'm not sleeping very much at all because I have my day job and then I'm coming in and I'm like organizing and doing everything and making sure that it's perfect for you. So then to get like yelled at for maybe like not getting enough dances or whatever the price point is or something like that, it makes it very hard to want to then continue to contribute back. I love tango enough that I'm not going to go anywhere. So like you guys are going to be stuck with me for a while on the tango scene, but like at the same time, it is hard to maintain doing this work when you're not getting paid enough for it. You also aren't always getting the respect that you should get for doing everything that you're doing and contributing to it. So again, I do think that there is a certain onus also on the community that you're servicing to also service you back. And this is one of those balances that needs to be struck when you think about organizers and teachers as well, because they do have to live off of it.
Well said. Carol, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the fact also that the local economy, wherever you happen to be, has a lot to do with price point as well. For example, Canada, our dollar is much, much lower than the euro or the American dollar. So, you know, and we will only charge what's reflective, you know, what people in our own community can pay. So, whenever we have someone coming in from outside, whether they be from Argentina or from Europe or from the US, we have to explain, this is what we can charge, this is what you're going to make, and it's going to be 30% less than what you're used to because our economy is like this. And I found that most people, when you explain it to them that way, they do understand, and there's not a problem that way. But I can't charge in US dollars here. It just wouldn't be fair. I don't live in a place where the economy is, the city of Montreal, the economy is not that great.
Puja, did you want to add to that? And then I'll get to you, Melina.
Yeah, I think also though, like, as we've been talking about, things change over time. And so it is important to change with that time. Part of the challenge that I'm having right now is that I am trying to kind of start this new community and start this new kind of wave of how I would like to see tango being. But there is an existing tango community here, and the prices have historically always been low because Austin 10 years ago is a very different city to Austin today. Austin 10 years ago, there was no Facebook, there was no Google, there was no Tesla coming in. There wasn't like all of these companies driving up the cost of everything in the city. And so you could historically have lower prices here, but things have changed a lot in the past 10 years. And I think locals would complain about that too. And yet the price of tango has remained largely the same. I actually had somebody complain to me as to why I created an LLC instead of a 501c3, because the image they have in their head of tango is it's a community and it's a charity thing for them to just get. And I had to look at the city that I'm in and what's going on around me and be like, I can't run it that way. Like, I actually think that tango has a value that we need to maintain and create and understand. And that's part of the reason why I've made the choice that I have, because it needs to be valued the way that it is. And I don't think that's just discounting everything to be the way it was 10 years ago. Like, the world has changed in addition to like us and our needs having changed, and we kind of have to keep up with that in order to create something that's going to be sustainable moving forward as well. So I take your point that, like, yes, different economies are different things are different, but like, as a result, I do think we need to be more forward looking if we want to create something that's going to survive for a longer period of time than just maybe what's happening right now.
Thank you. Melina, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm the financial and the, let's say, economical differences between cities and different communities and everything. And but I have to say that apart from the fact that it took us so many years to get to a certain level, because we didn't want to augment the price from one year to the other, just because we started doing it professionally, in general, I did not have so many negative experiences, neither as an organizer nor as a teacher, with our pricing. I can say that I lived well enough from tango. I'm not starving. I mean, of course, this year is different, but in general, we could live well enough. But I think that people usually respect that their teachers, organizers, or whoever contributes to this community will make a decent living if you explain it to them, if you act as professionals. And we talked about this earlier, that so many of us, they undercut themselves because they do not dare to ask enough. They do see themselves still as someone who's doing it just out of fun. So it's up to us how we are perceived by the others as well. Not we cannot influence everything, but I just wanted to add that, of course, now I'm living in Germany, and Germany is, of course, a very strong economy, and we do have a very different price level from France already, but we're still, let's say, less economically strong as Scandinavia, for example. But when we came to the United States to teach for us, for example, when we went there for 4 weeks, teaching every week in a different community, giving classes, giving workshops and private classes, we would earn the same amount of money as we would on one workshop weekend in Germany. So the differences are that, let's say, that strong, that each tango community somehow has to adapt to what is going on in their let's say, hometown, in their country and whatever. And when we're traveling, we cannot expect to have the same conditions everywhere. But what I found still important is that, as Puja also said, and Carol also said, that according to the local standards, you do not undercut your own work. Adapt, but do not undercut. Yep.
Well said. Michelle, you want to add to that?
Yes, I wanted to add to Puja and her great efforts, and I commend you for that, what you're trying to achieve. That sometimes organizers, I know from the Philadelphia community, every organizer here, we work really hard, and they're all trying to do their best. But just like every one of you has expressed, we hear a lot of criticism. There's always a myriad of people. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. You need to do this. And it's almost like a directive. You need to do this. You need to do that. And it's always you. And many a times we sort of take it because we try to please everybody. And then at some point I decided I cannot be, everybody's like, it's okay not to like me. I'm going to stick to my vision. I think I'm smart enough to stick to my vision. And what I can tell all of you ladies, all of you are super smart, brilliant, stick to your vision and don't, push back on whoever's just giving you that. Because what I find a lot of these people, their contributions are this much. They want, but when it's time to give in, they're like, ciao, bye, I need to go. So, sometimes we just need to stick to our vision.
That's a great point. I think especially when we're undercutting our costs when we're doing events, the last thing we want to hear is someone complaining. We're like, well, we just made I used to run events a long time ago, and I did it from a bad business model because we would make very little money. Like the last thing that I could stand is like somebody giving me a complaint about something when they were dancing and they were eating and drinking wine, and the United States milongas tend to be like a little food and drinks are on the house. So it's sometimes hard to hear, when you're making $20 somebody has a complaint and you're like, crap. So it's a good point to sort of stick to what you believe is good. The last thing I wanted to talk with, which is kind of going to what Michelle said, which is like this idea of like your personal brand, because surprisingly, not surprisingly, a lot of people decide to take classes or support events that you do, not because they're not just because they're good tango events, but because they like you and they want to support your initiatives. So I know a lot of my students take classes with me because they just like me. Like, tango is like a part of the reason why they are taking tango classes. It's also because they like me as a person and they support me as a person and they like the vibe that's happening there. And I was kind of reminded about a scenario that happened a couple of years ago. An organizer was bringing some really big a tango couple, and she wasn't getting the response that she thought she would get around participation. And she kind of asked on Facebook, like, why aren't people sort of supporting this? And she got a lot of great market research around why people do or do not support certain events or not, even if the tango couple is a superstar. Again, we've said there are so many variants, but one of the things that came up was they didn't feel that she was her contribution felt more like less about community and more about just pulling business. And some people, felt like a little, again, to lack of a better word, resentful, because they want to support people that feel like they're supporting them as well. They want to feel like the reciprocity of that. And I wanted to know if any of you guys felt that way around your communities, that yes, you're offering really great services, but do you also feel like your personal brand is very valuable in these moments? I didn't know if any of you guys felt that way in your communities. Go ahead, Carol.
Well, I want to I'll address that, but I also want to go back to just a little bit to the last subject we had. Personally, I've never felt, maybe I'm not that approachable or people don't talk to me, but I have not heard very much criticism of people thinking that we're overcharging or that we're trying to take advantage of them. And then, so, that hasn't really been a problem for us. But to talk about what you're talking now, I don't know if it's really but it has to do with people respecting you and trusting you. And that's over time. If they see that you have integrity, that you're doing something you believe in, that you're trying to, that they see you working hard and they see that you're trying to bring them good quality, then they will not just buy your product, but they will do anything for you because they know that they can trust you to bring them quality. And you mentioned that people were going to you for referrals as to who they should study with at one point. Well, that's because they trust you.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's, you're saying it exactly right. I think there's an inherent trust that is happening. And sometimes when an organizer doesn't feel like they have that trust being as the focal point, people might feel a little reticent to support them. Sonia, yeah, I'd love to hear about you, because I feel like you do have that a huge trust in your community at a local level and also at an international level.
I like this word trust, and I wanted to bring it up as Carol did. And but I wanted to say that for me, as I see it, trust is not only according to what someone saw you were doing before, is also some substance that we kind of feel in the communication with the person. Because it happened to me many times that I meet people around the world at tango events, and then I don't start talking about my events. I never do this kind of advertisement when I see someone. But then when person hears that I'm doing something in some time, I get a message, or it's even said live, I want to come to you because I feel that I can trust you this. This person never met me before and never came to any of my events. Okay, could hear some things or check up on internet. But I think that there is also this kind of substance, and trust is the main thing, I would say. the main thing.
Sonia, I want to highlight your organization in particular, you and Darko, because I go to Europe a lot, and I really enjoy the Europe tango scene. But in particular, I had exceptional experiences with you, with Darko, with the way that you guys interact, and your sense of building some intimacy in your milongas and in your festivals and in your marathons that feels so genuine and authentic that it makes me want to get on a fucking plane for 12 hours and come back. So I want to applaud you in particular, because I really felt that kind of authentic care about me as an individual, and you probably do that with a lot of people too. So I just want to commend you for that,
Thank you.
and highlight that. Yeah. Melina, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, you actually just mentioned the word that I wanted to bring in, and this is authenticity. I think in tango, kind of sympathy and also trust and all of this is related how you're going to attract people to come to your events or go to you as a teacher. It's really inseparable. But I've also seen a lot of tango teachers and organizers over the years who, because they know that this is so inseparable, they try to build up a tango persona and like being extra sociable and extra nice to everyone. And by that, losing themselves a little bit. So I found it always super important to just be myself. I'm going to be nice to people. I'm going to but I'm also going to be honest to people. And if I, for example, have a bad day, I'm not going to try to smile all the time, or not going to try to fake something that I'm not actually. And this is also something that I've experienced as very positive, because people actually understand that you're also just a human being and not just a persona standing there and having to smile all the time and being perfect all the time. You can be yourself in tango. People will understand it, because actually by acting as yourself, you will earn their confidence, because they feel that you open up to them. So being authentic is super important to earn the trust and the sympathy of people as well, not making something up, not faking it.
Right. I want to wrap this up, and I want to talk about, we've talked a lot about sort of the recent past of tango in communities, and we have a new unknown future for a lot of us. And what do you in this post-COVID world, what are some of the things that community needs? What are some of the things that local tango teachers need, local organizers need? Because again, it's not just about just saying, oh, I'll give a donation for them to help them. I think it's really about thinking about it in the broader context. Like, if you want something to come back to, this may be what do you need to do to support right now? What does support look like? Maybe we can kind of go down the line and have everyone kind of give their quick thought around what support looks like in this moment. And we'll start.
I didn't hear you. Said we start with me? Yes. Well, when this all started, we sat together, the whole team, and we asked ourselves, what are the needs now for both sides? We obviously do need some income to keep everything. But on the other hand, community also needs something. And then we came up with the thing that we will do, like we had something that we called Tango Natural TV. We made like around 150 different separated bilingual classes from the beginning of this, from the middle of March. Various programs of, I don't know, tango like as a dance, then some things about music, some live sessions, talks with the community, different videos, and so on. And we opened ourselves for the donations of people. We stayed together with the people in a way that we are also in communication with them, talking with them. So trying to because what we see that we can do is trying to give our best to preserve this feeling that the community is still there, that it still exists, that it doesn't depend only on classes and milongas. The tango is much more about it. As Puja was saying yesterday, tango is also culture, and there is music, and there are many other things, art that is not only dancing. But if we talk about human relations, what tango really is for us. So from our side, we tried to serve our community in this way, and we kept all our programs open and free, knowing that some people also lost their jobs. They cannot afford anything to pay now. Some others can. Who can pay, who cannot, doesn't pay, doesn't matter. But it's important, this feeling that we still have exchange, that the both sides are giving what we can give the best.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Michelle, what are your thoughts?
If anything positive about this lockdown that we have in many places, it has given us in the tango community an opportunity to peel many other layers that we have not been able to explore because we're so concerned with just dancing and steps and learning the latest figure and learning volcada and this and that, and class after class after class. It's okay to step back, chill. And I think I was telling Chrissy the other day of my own personal opinion, very personal opinion. I think we should all self-impose a quarantine once a year, a month minimum, just a self-care, self-love, and explore other things. It has given, I think, tango the opportunity. I know in our community, there's people offering topics on the history of tango, music, composition, how to DJ, many other topics that people are still consuming, I'll use that word again, and enjoying, that do not still keep them connected to their passion, but in a different way, at a different level. The the physical relation will be there when it's time. But right now, and we will survive. I think tango will survive. I have no doubt of that. And the community will survive. It's just a matter of those who survive better will be the ones that can adjust, have that ability to adjust.
Thank you. Puja, what are your two cents?
So I initially, because I do have another source of income, and actually my day job ended up taking up a lot more time now in this COVID period than even beforehand, had really taken a step back to do like a tango COVID sentiment survey. So I gathered 188 results from people around the world, and I've kind of been trying to understand how people are feeling, what they're thinking, and what does that mean for us. So I'm currently writing an article on the basis of the results, and the results are actually already out there, so people can definitely take a look at them. But also, I think for me, it's actually kind of an exciting point in time. I know that's kind of odd to hear, like, yes, I'm not happy that I can't dance or that I can't host my events, but I've been one of those people who has been talking about how tango is more than just a dance. And I think this is a great time for us all to really examine those other aspects of tango and kind of bring them to the forefront. And I hope to continue to do that. I hope to continue to especially do that with people who maybe aren't part of the tango scene yet. I think people are getting Netflix fatigue. They're getting like a lot of, HBO fatigue. So I think it's an opportunity right now to get tango also in front of people in maybe some of my other circles who had too much going on and didn't really have the time to stop and look at it, and maybe get them involved in some ways that it could be new and exciting for them. So I'm really trying to focus on some of maybe my entrepreneur groups or my work groups and bringing them into this world, because I think everybody has a chance to stop and look at something new right now. So
thank you.
To
awesome.
continue doing things like
Thanks
that.
so much, Puja. Carol, what are your thoughts?
Well, our reality is not maybe the same as everybody else's. We have a dedicated space and a huge monthly rent that we have to pay. So I talked a bit about this yesterday, that I got advice and help from some people in Europe, because of course the COVID had more hit Europe a bit before here in North America, and we scrambled already like very middle of March to start a GoFundMe, and I feel very, very lucky and very appreciative of the wonderful community that we have here, who really stepped up, and some because of sentimental reasons. We got messages, I wouldn't have met my husband, I wouldn't have had my children if we hadn't met at your place, and sort of thing. And my studio is called Studio Tango Montréal, and it's been in existence for like 20 odd years. And we moved in 5 years ago into another space that has a lot of significance for the community here, called Tango Social Club. So there's sort of a whole feeling of wanting to keep it alive. But even though we've gotten all this support, and we were lucky enough to be eligible for some aid from our federal government here, which helped us out for giving us a big chunk of a subsidy for 4 months of rent. We only had to pay 25% on those 4 months. It's questionable though, how long is this going to go on? How we feel that we have to keep this going, not only because we want to, but because so many people are invested in it and want it to happen. We tried to do things online. Our little way of doing it was to do a little sort of cocktail party every few weeks on Zoom, not a milonga, but just a thing where people could get together and chat, or we'd watch a video or something like that. Our teachers all got together and each of us made a number of little 1 minute to 3 minute videos with like one exercise that we would, produce daily for people, so that people at home during the confinement had something to do, something to feel connected to. But, the reality is like, we really don't know how long this is going to go on. Our government here has allowed us now to open, but in a very limited capacity. It's not really tango when you can't, come to an event and dance with different people and stand closer than 2 meters to socialize. So I feel that we're still learning from the COVID experience, and that even though it's been 5 months in, it's still too early to determine how things are going to go,
Yeah, exactly. The unknown is a bit scary. Melina, what are your 2 cents?
My 2 cents. Exactly. Yeah, well, when this whole thing started, we had to become active right away, because we depend on our tango income. And so I basically started doing 2 different things. The first thing was to develop a campaign on Indiegogo. We didn't want to ask for donations, so we started building up digital products, not online classes, but video workshops. And we also translated our book and DVD into German, and soon it will come out in French as well, so that we can sell that. And that worked really, really nicely. Also, people buying vouchers for future tango holidays or future events. And also people giving actually donations, although we did not ask them for donations. So we were quite successful in actually generating, let's say, a replacement for our lost income. That worked really well. What also worked really well was postponing events. And only very few people actually asked their money back. So we postponed events to next year. Or we try to find new dates for a boot camp that is now going to happen in January and February next year. And we had already actually collected that money. So we were not, let's say, on the verge of not being able to pay our rent anymore. So we're quite lucky with that. But this was just the financial part, and that worked out well. But what I was very concerned about was holding together our small local growing community, because, the contributions to our campaign, these came mostly from our international community and people who had known us for 20 years now. But the local tango community we're trying to build up, some of them know us far less than a lot of our international friends or customers. And so what I tried to do was also to integrate them into the process of how are we going to progress and how are we going to restart. When are we going to restart? Because here in Germany, in our region, the actual lockdown was not longer than 7 weeks or so. And after 8 weeks, we were allowed to start classes again with fixed partners. Now we are allowed to have basically also milongas with change of partners when we do not have more than 35 people coming to it. So we are allowed to do contact sports with 35 people, not yet real big events or bigger milongas, but we can do small things, and classes can go normally now, even with changing in partners and stuff. But in this meanwhile, I tried to give them lectures. I organized lectures about tango musicality and tried to get them together to not lose it, because some of these people who had just started tango, and I was really fearing to lose them again. They were so super enthusiastic, and now I feared, whoa, what's going to happen if we're now going to interrupt these classes? But there is one thing I would like to mention, because these were more the things that I did. And what I would have needed a little bit more is a reliability also from people, because, as I said, we could restart classes after 8 weeks. And then I made a huge effort of asking everyone, listen, how do you want to restart? When do you want to restart? Do you want us to hold your money until September or October, or do you want to restart now? And then it was clear, okay, I got a lot of feedback. Okay, I can start. So I had to rent a bigger place because our studio is very small, and with the distance rule, so I needed to rent a bigger space. And I was counting on these people to coming, actually. And then on the evening when we restarted our classes, half of the people did not show up, although I had met this long questionnaire. I spent so many hours coordinating all that restarting. And then they decided spontaneously that they are still too afraid to restart tango, even if they only dance with their partner, even if it is in a huge space. And I could understand it, but they forgot just about the fact how much time I had already invested in organizing all that. And that it is for me also a profession, and that I rely on them coming. And this was a little bit frustrating in that moment. Now people, some of them are showing up again, but I felt somehow not so much respected in the effort I was trying to bring into trying to get their needs, to trying to let's say hear their needs, and I did. And then they changed their opinion just 1 second before the class started. This was quite frustrating. So what I would need to be able to count on what people actually tell me. So if they tell me they're gonna come, please, I want them to come. They don't have to come. They can stay away from tango for the next 3 years, but it's their choice. But if someone tells me I'm gonna come to that class, please come. And I was not used to that here in Germany, because people are usually quite reliable in that. But here, this was a big catastrophe for me. So reliability, please.
Yeah, I think moving forward, the counting on people's yeses is really important. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to close the conversation. I think we touched on so many amazing topics here, and I would love if everyone can go and tell people what they're doing, if you have classes to support, what you've got going on, and then we'll wrap it up. So let's start with Sonia again.
So as I've mentioned before, we have this project called Tango Natural TV. Now in July and August, it goes a bit slower, like we have just a smaller number of things, but whoever is interested can check it out on our website, www.tangonatural.com. At this moment, we are not supportable from abroad because one campaign expired and we are in the process of creating the other one. But anyway, I would really be happy if some of the new people get to know us better, what we do, what our approach is, and this is not related to money, is related to getting to know each other. And of course, I would like to get responses, messages about how people feel about what they see and what are their real needs. Because as Melina said, being on this side, we really need to be able to count on people's yes or no, of course. On the other hand, we also need to know your needs. Because if we don't know your needs, we are not able to fulfill your needs.
Thank you so much, Sonia. Michelle.
Philadelphia. My colleague organizers, as well as myself, we are pretty much on a united front as to when are we going to open. We're following the recommended guidelines. When the time comes, I'm hoping that we can slowly resume. We had the Milonga that I run, Tango Cafe, had just moved to a new venue starting in January. And just as a celebration of this new venue, which is over 8,000 square feet on 2 floors, Passyunk Avenue. Phenomenal place, and we threw a big party. People loved it. We had great attendance, so that generated a lot of momentum. In February we had the same, and then COVID hit, so things, but hopefully that will continue with the same enthusiasm, pick where we left off, and so do the rest of my colleagues, that we are all supporting one another on our efforts to continue. In the meantime, continue exploring other things, study the music, listen to music. There's still some gatherings of people, small gatherings, people get together for lunches or who they feel safe with to share a walk in the park. So it's all, we're still trying to stay connected.
Thank you, Michelle. Puja?
I would love to get connected with more people. So afterwards in the comments, I'll add in my website and Instagram and Facebook handles. You'll be able to find out when I release that article that I was talking about, and it's going to be free. So feel free to check that out. Also, I did create a COVID-19 resource page on my website, which actually links out to a lot of different people who have their own projects going on and things that they might need to stay supported. So feel free to check that out as well, because there's a lot of people who I think could use the support, maybe a lot more than I necessarily needed in this moment. So please go and check that out. And also for everybody who's on this call, I would love to link to your things. So feel free to share them so I can update my own website.
Awesome. Thanks, Puja. Go ahead, Carol.
Whoops.
Can you hear us? We can see you.
I can. Oh, you
Yeah.
can? Can you hear me?
You're good.
Okay, so sorry, I dropped my computer, which was odd. But what I would like to say is, well, I spoke already to a bit that we're sort of starting up very slowly, and people can find us if they want to. We're in English Studio Tango Montreal. But one thing that the COVID situation has brought me, it's reinforced my connections with other tango teachers here in my city and other tango leaders and community leaders in other cities across North America and in various other places. And this feeling of being able to message someone like, for instance, Meredith in Philadelphia to ask her advice about something, or talk to Felipe Arellano or a friend in Korea, to be able to share information has been really valuable and really heartwarming. And I know in the US, things are very difficult with the COVID situation, much more than in most other places. But there's a wealth of things online that people can check out if they're interested. There's Jay Abling, who's giving wonderful music classes. There's Chico and Adam, who have activities. There's Felipe and Ayano on the West Coast. There's Meredith, who's offering a variety of things. I really encourage people to check out these things. It's a way of staying connected to tango communities, to other people, and to be learning and being exposed to sides of tango maybe we're not so that we don't give time for necessarily when we're really actively dancing and going to milongas and stuff.
Exactly right. This is for a lot of people, time to explore tango's other components besides just the dance. Thank you. And Melina.
Yeah, there is one thing I would like to mention here in this point. During these last month, I was super active in trying to coordinate the activities of dance schools here in my region, because in Germany, you have to know, every region has different, or let's say every federal state has different laws regarding Corona. And so it's quite important to try to get up to date with these regulations on a, let's say, regional level. So I was trying to coordinate activities of dance schools here in the Saarland region. That was a little bit unsuccessful because a lot of people just lay low. They just decided to not do anything. And I was constantly communicating with the ministries and trying to write down petitions or trying to be a little bit more active to gain clarity about what the regulations would be, how we could plan our future actually. And there I found it a little bit frustrating that so few people actually were engaging in this process. This is now getting a little bit better now that the regulations are not that harsh anymore. But I found it interesting that people were just laying low and not doing anything during this real, let's say, dire period. And on a national level, we tried to form a association of tango activists, let's call it that way, not only teachers, but organizers and musicians and tango artists, because in Germany, we do have the situation that tango is not considered an art. Tango is considered a sport. And this is why we do not have access to all kinds of helps that were now launched during the Corona crisis, and also other general helps that artists usually can apply to. So our goal is at the moment to keep on forming that, let's say, an official forum for tango activists in Germany to change our working conditions for the future, not only in this situation now, but actually in normal business as well. And what I would really hope for that is more tango professionals actually trying to engage there, because as usual, it is only a couple of people trying to bring that into the politics, trying to actually be active and doing stuff about it. And we need just more support about that. So whoever's watching in Germany, wer immer zuschaut, bitte meldet euch, tut was, do something.
Thank you so much, Melina. It was a pleasure to have you guys on. I hope you guys, if you haven't yet, checked through some of the comments, and there's some people that are asking for maybe more information, repeating the website, but just hopefully you can take some time to respond to some of these really lovely comments. So I thank you all so much. I thank everyone for watching, and we look forward to doing another Tango Roundtable very soon. Thanks, everyone. Be well.